Welcome to the Veil Between Lives, a sanctuary where lived experience meets the great mystery. Here we hold soulful conversations with those who have touched the unseen and what lies beyond the physical world. We're honored you're here stepping into this space with us. I'm Susan, and this is my co-host, Em, and we are joined by a very, very special guest today. A warm welcome to Lisa Greenfield.
Thank you. I'm already feeling cozy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So Lisa is an intuitive guide who helps people reconnect to their deeper truth already within them, so they make clearer choices and trust themselves in a whole new way. She blends astrology, tarot, and hand analysis to offer insight that's both intuitive and practical, giving you not just awareness, but real tools that you can use in everyday life. With well over 50,000 readings for clients around the world, Lisa has worked with everyone from global influencers to CEOs to creatives and seekers. So excited to have you with us today, Lisa.
Thank you. It's the one thing that I never get tired of is discovering a new person. So,
Oh, I just love it. I love it. I think our listeners would just love to know the backstory of early life and what was your first kind of introduction into your intuitive gifts?
well, oddly enough, yeah, thank you for asking. Oddly enough, I didn't realize they were intuitive gifts because
Mm.
I came from a family where they were storytellers. And one of the stories, they liked the ghost stories and things like that. In fact, we actually picnicked in graveyards to go visit the old ones, when we went back east to visit the family. So they were always talking about who would see ghosts and, the different things like that. And so I didn't my sister did, she saw ghosts, but I didn't. I just would see people and know things. But what really anchored it in is we weren't allowed to watch a lot of TV. My parents were ahead of the curve on that. So we read a lot. And my brother came home from the library with a book on palmistry, used my hand as a sample. He moved on to the next book, and I was hooked.
Oh,
So it's like, oh, all of a sudden I started understanding that it's like all of these lines in your hand correspond with, believe it or not, astrology, but also personality traits and brain biology, which over the course of my career, I had a chance to check out in some pretty fun ways, anecdotal research, because I started at 13 and I didn't do it as my main job. It was a sideline, so I was doing it all the time for fun. So it just kept refining. It helped me take all of this intuition I had when I looked at people and put it in a container that made sense for me.
yeah.
So I didn't see it as gifts because I wasn't channeling dead people.
Right.
But I found out you could learn about past lives right here in your hands. So it's like, ooh, there's a treasure chest that never stops giving. Yeah.
Wow. I love
hmm
it. Fascinating. Oh, what a fascinating career you have doing this. Goodness.
Never boring. Never boring.
Right. Right.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Yeah.
So you did this as a hobby when you were younger, right?
Mhm.
And
Uh,
then
yeah.
maybe had a career and then came home, it sounds like.
It's so funny, yes, because I never expected to be doing this as a business. I did it in my teenage years because I wanted to hold hands with the cute boys. And my father always said, everybody's an expert on one subject. Them, if you get them talking about themselves, they won't be shy and you can have a conversation with anyone. I thought that was good advice. And then when I rolled into the corporate world for over 27 years, this was my secret weapon.
Ooh.
It actually got me into accounts that nobody else could get into and conversations with people that were so burnt out on having salespeople call on them that it wound up getting me promoted. It wound up, I won trips all over the world because I just was able to talk to people genuinely curious and interested in them. And so it was a fantastic hobby. And because I didn't depend on it for a living, I mean, I actually read over 50,000 hands in one 5-year period. And so it's like we've gone well beyond that. And because I started so early, I'm probably in a small percentage. I've had a huge cross section of people over 5 decades later,
Wow.
that it's like, yeah, I've seen a lot of people through the lens of their hands. And again, never gets old.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are some of the most rare things that you see when you read?
I'm so
Um,
glad you asked because I, of course, wanted to see your hands. You didn't ask me to do that. I asked, so I'm just genuinely nosy.
I love it.
And you both sent your hands over. And of course, it's never an accident. There's something I call the game changer line. It comes from down here in the bottom of the hand. Like you can see, I don't know if you can see on the light isn't great here, but it's like I have one that comes here. It's down. This is the moon and this is Pluto. Okay. So that line that starts down here on the bottom corner of your hand, but it comes from, sometimes from the headline, sometimes it's another sister line. But when I see that marking down here in this corner, and it's a little stronger over here in this one. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like it comes all the way down like this. And
Yeah.
so it's like that line, it's the game changer line, and it's only about 13 to 14% of the population. What this often means is these are people who, when you walk into a room, even as a child, depending on how low down the line goes, even as a child, you shift the status quo just by walking into the room. You don't have to open your mouth. You don't have to do anything special. Your energy is already a catalyst. And so it tends to shake things up. But people who are really dug in on their status quo will dislike you and they won't know why. The smarter they are, the better they'll logistically explain why they don't like you. But the bottom line is their survival instinct is threatened when the status quo shifts.
Mhm.
And so they will dislike you. And that can be really hard on the game changers who start young. Cause it's like, I remember having a teacher who couldn't stand me. And it's like, I was the most eager beaver, do whatever you're told, overperform student. So it's like, I don't get it. She just didn't like me, and it's like, this will happen a lot to game changers. But the people who are ready for change will also embrace you. And again, they'll come up with a list of serviceable reasons, but the bottom line is you're also bringing in change and they welcome change. So it's very important for game changers to understand it's like a fish in water. You don't realize that your perspective is different than 87% of the perspectives out there. People don't see it the way you do, but you don't realize that because you're looking out the eyes of, your own experience, and that change comes with you everywhere you go. So, yeah, yeah. Did you guys have some experiences growing up of being a game changer and antagonizing people unnecessarily just by being you?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This makes a lot of sense, actually. It still makes sense.
Have this?
Pardon?
We both have this?
You both have this. And by the way, it's only 13 to 15% of the population, but over half my clients have those markings. Game changers have a way of finding each other because you're coming from the deep unconscious, and it can be a lonely place when you're walking around and 87% of the people around you, they don't see it and understand it. So there are times when they look at you and they're just going, what? Yeah. And you're
Sounds
going,
familiar.
but it's so clear. I can see it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And then
Yeah.
both of you also have the magician mark. Okay. Oh,
Mm.
actually, I switched the percentage. Game changer is only about 7% of the population. My apologies. Magician is 13 to 14%. Okay. So 7%, that's 93%. Game changers are walking around and 93% don't
Wow.
see it the way you do. But again, that's why game changers tend to find each other. It's like, just because you can exhale suddenly and you don't even necessarily understand why, you just can,
Yeah.
around other game changers. But
Mhm.
magicians are the 13 to 14%. And these are more of our visionary leaders. So now when you combine the game changer with the visionary leader, here's the thing. You have a way of charting a course that doesn't obey logic. I want you to think Christopher Columbus, but without the genocide, please.
Yeah.
Okay. He went left when everybody else went right to get to the East Indies. He thought, what if we go the opposite way? I think that there was a shortcut, because they didn't know how big the world was at that point.
Mhm.
It was an intuitive decision. He had to stick with it. He had to lobby for a couple of years. So it's like, his intuition said, try this direction. So I liken it to you magicians out there that have the M in your hand. It's something where you have an instinctive sense that there's something around the corner. You haven't been around the corner, so you don't have lived experience. You can't see around the corner, but you know it. You feel it in your bones. There's something interesting around the corner. Now, when it's yours, then you won't be able to stop thinking, I got to go see what's around the corner. But in some cases, you magicians and you magician game changers, especially, sometimes if you really don't feel the pull, but you can't, stop thinking, yeah, there's something there. It's because you're supposed to tap somebody else on the shoulder and go, there's something really interesting around the corner up there. Are you interested?
Ooh.
Yeah. So you guys can be torch bearers and, baton hander offers, kind of thing. It's like, okay. And that's part of your changing the game. But the M, the magician, we all come standard with our intuition, our heart, our mind, and our body, right? And game changer magicians, but even just magicians without the game changer, having the three main lines, the heart line, the headline, and the lifeline, they have a connector line that somehow makes it into an M. Okay. And sometimes there can be multiple connector lines. But even if you just have the M, your intuition naturally takes the lead. Your heart, which is the really magnetic part of you, then attracts in, they've measured the electromagnetic field. It's 5 to 6,000 times more magnetic than our brains, no
Mhm.
matter how smart you are. So it's like, okay, so you sense it, you love what you're sensing. It's like, no, I really want to go explore this. And then your mind comes in third. Most people in the Western world are calculating from mind first. We're just indoctrinated. And then finally the body acts on it. But it's like when you do it, intuition first, heart second, mind to strategically map how to safely get around the corner and then act on it, you accomplish things that other people, it looks like magic to them.
Wow.
Okay. Have any experience with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's in- what's interesting to me right now, I feel like you have an insight into my soul. I'm feeling a little exposed, right? Um, no, and I say this like genuinely. It's
Mm-hmm.
um it's a little moving. I just feel
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of my life I felt very misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like
Yes.
you just kind of poked into a part of me that feels very vulnerable, like you almost like you know me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And what I love the most, and one of the reasons why I've never gotten tired of looking at hands, is we are so conditioned to look at the negative space, okay, in our life. We're conditioned by what we didn't get, what we didn't like, what didn't happen, where other people object to us, where we've traded some of our authenticity for belonging because we're hardwired to belong. And the younger we are, we're a very helpless mammal. When we're born, we're not standing up and grazing the first day.
Right.
So we have a built-in brainstem behavior that says we need to belong in order to survive. And when you're 7 to 13% of the population and a lot of people don't get you, it can feel very threatening to your survival.
Yes.
It's a very real survival instinct, and it feels so reassuring to know that it's like, no, it's because you're here to shake up the status quo. And you did come in with gifts, but let's not overlook those tender places.
Mm.
Mhm.
You know? But
Yeah.
even without those two gift markings, we very often look at or avoid looking at our worst flaws because they feel so big. It's so easy to see where we fall short or, what we woulda, shoulda, coulda done differently. Our minds are working all the time, on that self-improvement or that compare and despair. But when you look at your hands, what I get to see is the upside potential that can kind of get lost in that survival instinct of where you've navigated in order to belong and survive. And it's like, oh, but you've got this, and you've got this, and you've got this. And suddenly, when you put a big picture frame, your faults just become the outline that help you anchor in all of that power, all of that, that shines. And it's extraordinary. I've yet to meet somebody where their faults are bigger than their gifts.
Yeah.
It's usually a 20-1 at the lowest, 20 positive to 1 negative. And it's just like, wow, so who couldn't use a little more of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. So interesting. It's the way that you talk about this and the insight you're giving about this and framing it as gifts also, like I'll piggyback on a little bit about what Em was just saying, but I feel seen for
Yeah.
who I really am.
Mhm.
And that these things, instead of what I might have thought as younger, like a curse or something, is actually a
Yeah.
gift. And it's actually something special that should be nurtured, right? And
Yeah.
that we shouldn't try to force ourselves out of it because of the sense of belonging. I hear this a lot. It's one of the reasons why we created this podcast. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for saying that. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Thank you for creating the podcast because we're in the age, Pluto's in Aquarius, and we're at this historic astrological tipping point. Everybody who chose to be alive right now,
Mm,
is living through one of the biggest evolutionary leaps in over 6,400 years.
yeah.
All right. And so change always shakes up the status quo. You've had a whole lifetime as, magician game changers to experience what it feels like to be in the margins. And now a lot of people who their safety, their if I do this, then it turns out this way, is being wiped out for all kinds of reasons. So they really need people who've already had a lived experience of how to survive that and show them what it looks like, that it's like everything can change and you're going to discover things about yourself that are so necessary for right now. It's exactly what the times call for. And it's literally the time of individuality. It's from the ground up, the individuality, letting our freak flag fly in a
Mm,
thoughtful way. The thing that we've got now is that the era of rugged individualism for, independence sake, which particularly in the Western world we've been guilty of, is over because there's a cost benefit to it. We
mm,
are meant to find our individuality and then learn how to integrate it with others in a way that's thoughtful, not conditional, thoughtful. It's like, how do I serve up my individual self in a way that's an invitation, engaging, or fun? And if they still don't want to play, that's okay. Right now,
mhm.
we've never had more opportunity to go meet each other, even if it's online,
Yeah.
and play in small groups of, not, I won't say like minded, because in some cases, the contrast of thinking things differently is an important part of, catalyzing that next change. But like hearted or like energetic, that it's like, oh, I really want to evolve in this direction.
Mhm.
I really want to connect in this way. And it's like
Yeah.
you get to explore it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I love it. Off camera,
Uh-huh.
we spoke about there's also some lines in the hands that might indicate some past life stuff, which because I'm a past life practitioner,
Mhm.
I this question just fascinates me. I'm really curious. Really
Oh,
curious.
absolutely. And this is something where back to the library as a child, I
Mm.
would love to give the reference for this, and I've looked and looked and looked for years, and I haven't found it yet. Maybe AI can help me. I'll drill down again with that, just because they've got so much copious information. But I read so much text on, both Indian astrology, I mean, palmistry in your hands, Chinese astrology, the palmistry in your hands. There's all the different schools. I can't find a source for this, but I was fascinated because I grew up with ghost stories. So it's like
Mhm.
always interested in the family lore,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so it caught my imagination, drilled down on it. Since learned some things with palmistry where it's like, okay, we're looking at your left little finger. The reason for that is our left hand is wired into the half of our brain that does global processing. It's symbology. It's the unboundaried. One of my favorite ways to differentiate is if anyone wants to do more on this, Jill Bolte Taylor is a brain doctor who had a stroke, and it took out her left brain. So all of the task specific was wiped out. She's sitting in front of a phone, so it's working on that left side. She's sitting in front of the phone, and she's having this whole experience of seeing how this came about and how we're all connected and all of this. She can't remember how to dial. Okay.
Wow.
She cannot remember how to dial the phone. And she's, I think, a neurobiologist who's observing this. So it's like, thank goodness. Sorry that she had the stroke, but thrilled for all of us. But that's why we go to the left hand first, because they say we pull in the unbounded from past experience. So if you believe in reincarnation, we start here. Mercury is the finger. This is where we meet the world. Okay. This is our will, the divine will, which puts us into place, but it's like our will. And this is our opposable thumb, with Venus. And so it's passion, logic, and divine will is the thumb. And then we've got Jupiter, which is our ability to animate, make things happen. Saturn, the middle finger on the hand. So you've got two fingers on this side, two fingers on that side. This is our backbone. This is our integrity. This is
Mm.
our ability to, stay on task and complete. It's all of the important, I think of it like the axis on a globe. The whole world can spin, but your Saturn, a strong Saturn, will help you stay right there. Okay. Then we've got our gifts. Once we're centered, once we've got our will, once we can animate things and make it happen, we anchor it in our integrity in this middle finger. Then we move into that ring finger, and those are our gifts. What do you bring out? What's special about you? And then how do you do it is Mercury. Out here, it's like this is where we then take all of this that is us and we put it out in the world. So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, this is where we meet the world. So we're going, and so now we're going, this is the bottom joint on here is our physical body. The middle joint is more of our mind, and the top joint is our will. Okay, so the will is connected with divine or the collective unconscious or the past life. So now we've arrived at the top of your left little finger and you understand a little bit of the genesis, right? There's the research showed that those vertical lines that are on the top, particularly on the pad, because your fingerprint is there. Now, there's all kinds of lines on the sides, and those tend to have more layered meanings. But it's like if you've got lines like M, you've got lines on the outside of your hand. But I'm looking specifically at the lines that are going through your fingerprint. Okay, because there's a print on your fingers. And one of the things that I learned how to do was analyze your fingerprints because we have four main types with several additional combination types, and we have 10 fingers. So even more specific, because two people born in the same place at the same time have the same chart, but they won't have the same fingerprints. I
Mm.
did identical twins, sisters, and read their hands, very different.
Wow.
Okay. Fascinating. So it's
Yeah.
like, but those prints are formed in utero. And that about 12 to 14 weeks, those are formed and they pull in from the feminine side and the masculine side, the two pieces of DNA. And so those prints tell me more about what your life's purpose is, what your soul's mission is, what you came here. So when we've got lines going through those on that top left little finger, Now we're cooking. Okay. So it's like, all right, what came through in your chromosomal line that you cooked in mom's stomach, for how long? And what does it tell us about your past life story? The
Mhm.
vertical lines that cut through your life purpose, they believed that it was one of these where it tended to be a quick exit. Okay, so sometimes it could be there's other things that we won't drill down with too much, detail on the gory. There's, certain things you can see where it's like, oh, that was a messy exit, even though it was fast. But bottom line is the vertical lines tended to be, I'm out of here. So it's a clean exit. The horizontal lines, on the other hand, are one where you didn't want to go. Okay. So it's like, no, I'm resisting. It's like, I'm not ready to go yet. Yeah. And so those are the ones where it's like, our soul, it goes, but there's something in our psyche. And very often, particularly because about 60-ish% of us have loops, which is here, it's a life purpose that has to do with mastering relationships, love and closeness,
Mhm.
authenticity. It's like we're definitely being challenged as a species right now to do a better job of living together. Okay. So when you've got those horizontal lines cutting through loops, then I'll look to see what your astrology says, but it's like very likely you've got a soul family here that carries over from past lives. And you can
Wow.
start looking at the intersections. You can look at the different charts side by side. And I'm a geek, so it's like I love going down the rabbit hole. It's like, wow, you start mapping these family constellations. And let me make sure I don't mix these two up because I looked at both of your hands. And it's like, yeah, there we go. Okay. Susan, you had more vertical lines. Now, you tended to make a quick exit. All right. But on the outside one, I would say probably your last life, it was a push pull. So there was a part of me that's, I'm out of here, but I really don't want to leave this one behind, or I really, can I take this one with me kind of thing. It's just
Mm,
like there was a hook in that one. And it's
interesting.
just like, yes. And interestingly enough, that line sits apart from some of the other lines. So it's like there's one particular relationship, I would say, in this lifetime that probably is unresolved karma for you to, it's like that one relationship. It's like that's the cleanup karma. The
Mm,
rest are for fun, for play, for, oh, let's do this again. Let's meet on the playground again,
okay.
kind of thing.
Oh,
But that
interesting.
one, it's like, that one requires, and there's more research we could do. But the bottom line is that's the one where it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. I want to make sure I leave this time on a clean note with them. Right.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yep. And then M. Now, M, you've got a constellation here of karma cleanup with your loved ones. So you came in with a batch. There's a batch of you. This is almost like it makes me think of, the men fighting at the Alamo. They all went down together. It's like, no, we're going to go back and we're going to win this time, kind of thing. Or something along those lines, or the Titanic, it's like, oh, it's like the crew of the Titanic. It's like, no, no, we're going to come back. We're going to rewrite this one. So it's like, it can feel a little more tender, a little more exposed, but I'm not surprised that you came in again with the game changer magician, because it's like that actually, when you've got those special gift markings, I call them pearls because it starts with a pain point. When an oyster gets grit, it would be great if it could just expel the grit, but pearls come out of the place where you can't get rid of the grit. It's like, ow, ow, ow. But over and over and over again, when you revisit it and you have a chance to make it softer and more beautiful in the process, they become your pearls. So there are people in your life who are probably going to be an ouch, and you can't quite get away from them, you know? Yeah.
I love it.
And that's okay. You're going to work it out. And that all that you have to do, because you have loops, I can see yours clearly. I would need a little more magnification on yours, Susan, to drill down on all of your prints. Although you do have loops in a couple of fingers, I can't quite tell on your pinky. But because you have loops, it's like, again, this is just mastering authenticity. And it's emotion that's yours, because you both have fire, which I love. You both have a fire heart. So you're both highly intuitive, and yet you've got backup in water, which is also very emotional and connected. But fire and water together is a steam engine, right? So it's like, of course you guys are steaming along.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
But that's the place where it's like, all right, what do I feel? How much of what I'm feeling is mine? As opposed to, I look at some people's hands and they're swimming. And it's just like, okay, you definitely need to ground yourself every day, and you need clearing rituals and, selenite and, you need the full works, because it's like, yeah, but you guys, you both require fuel. Do you know what your fuel, because as fire requires fuel, right? Do you call a fire greedy or egotistical for running low and burning low? You just know it needs more fuel, right?
No.
So it's like, okay, guess what your fuel is? Praise, applause, recognition, and respect. And that's for everybody. Everybody who's got fire in a prominent place in their astrology or in their hands requires praise, applause, recognition, and respect.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, you're out in the public eye. Fire is what lights and warms, but it also requires a good audience, one that has invited you into their home and recognizes it and gives you praise, applause, recognition, and respect, so that while you're doing your work, you can burn brightly. Yeah. Does that land?
Yes, absolutely. 100% that lands. Everything you've said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just so, because you're lighting a path. Okay. But it starts with making sure you're taking good care of that fire.
Yeah.
Do you want some homework for that
Sure.
fire?
Love it.
I
Yes.
love giving this, because I hope if anyone in your audience, it's like if you've got fire in your astrology, and by the way, fire heart, and somewhere up here, it gets past the midpoint. Our heart line is the top line on the hand, that top horizontal line. And if it gets up into this region, there under that first finger or just past the midline between the two, that's a fire heart.
Okay.
Okay. And what I call is, sometimes you'll see it and it's like, you can't see it in this. I've got a water heart. It goes all the way to here. But that fire heart, you can have an underground fire heart where it's like, you can see the line, but you have to really have the right light and look at it. And it's like, oh, I can see where it goes all the way up there, but that's not the deepest or darkest part of the line. When we think, feel, and act on something, it actually sends energy down electromagnetic pathways in our brain, carves out our little brain biology. All right. When you want to change your mind and change your line, you can do that. And one of the ways I like to do that with people is, again, think, feel, and act on something at least 21 times in a new way that's supportive. So that's why I'm giving you this for all of my fire peeps, where it curves up, and it doesn't have to touch the finger. It just has to get up in that little region up there, past that midline and up towards the pointer finger. If you've got a fire heart particularly, but if you've got a fire head, that's another story. Yeah, you still need the fuel. So now we're on to thinking, feeling, and acting in a new way at least 21 times. Do you guys brush your teeth? Good to know. Fun aside, I once read for an Australian sex symbol who shall remain nameless. And I asked him, I said, do you brush your teeth every day? And he looked at me with an absolutely straight face and he goes, no. And I'm going, if I ever gave that name out, it would kill a million fantasies to know you're walking around with mossy teeth. It's like, ooh. Yeah, it's just like, okay. But after that, he was dead serious. He was not, because at first I thought he was having me on, and I'm going, no, he's not. He's not joking. It's like, okay, so now I don't assume that everybody brushes their teeth every day. But all right, the reason I ask is because we're going to piggyback on it. When you do piggyback on something you're already doing, it goes into short-term and then long-term memory faster. So it's like, why not supercharge your fuel engaging system, right? All right, here's the hard part. I said fire requires fuel, praise, applause, recognition, and respect. So you're going to make a list of the 30 best compliments you didn't get. There's vulnerability in this. So it's like, first you have to really tune into what you wanted and didn't receive. Okay. And in some cases, like there was one woman, she was a female CEO. I would have thought it was her, her board. She had a tough board. And, to get her list going. And she says, no, she goes, my 13-year-old daughter, nothing like a teenager to make you feel like absolutely invisible. I'm going, okay.
Oh,
You can go all the way back to childhood, what you wish mom would have said, what dad would have said, whatever, is meaningful. Bosses, boyfriends, girlfriends, anyone. Think about that. That 30 list is one of the hardest things for most of my fire, but it's like, really look at where you didn't feel seen, respected, appreciated, and put that on your list. Now you're going to put that list by your toothbrush. All right. And morning and night, you're going to take one compliment a day. All right. So the good news is at the end of 30 days, you'll have done at least 60 of these. And there's a specific way I want you to do it. But it's like that more than retrains your brain. So that already starts the fuel going. And particularly for some of my fire hearts that have a guard up, then it helps your brain trust you because it's receiving from you. Okay. And so it's like, oh, you trust yourself so you can safely receive that fuel. Then you're not at lack and you can start being very discerning about which invitations are good for you versus what are just fuel when you're about out of gas. Okay. It makes you a much more selective shopper. All right. So you've got your list. It's by your toothbrush. You're brushing your teeth in the morning. You're supposed to brush for 2 minutes. So while that, brushing is going on, you're thinking, one woman put on there, I'm so proud of you. 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 She's thinking it, rinse, spit, look yourself in the eye, say it, see it, hear it, eye to eye. That can be hard. I've had people tell me it's very uncomfortable to look themselves in the eye and say what they really wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Safe practice receiving. There was one woman, I've had story after story of such success with this, because, but before I get into that, at the end of 30 days, you can decide if you want to keep the whole list. You can decide if you want to swap out some of them. You can replace the whole thing. It's your list. It's free. It's legal. It's portable. There's no calories involved. Why wouldn't you? Right? You're retraining your brain. You're fueling up. Right? But the success stories have been staggering. My favorite is when she had been off and on for a couple of months, and she'd always wanted her mom to say, I'm so proud of you. Well, she called me, and for a minute I'm going, do I need to call emergency services? Because she's to talk to you. And, it's like by the time I finally got her calmed down, it's like she said she'd been waiting her whole life. Her mom had finally said, I'm so proud of you. And then we went off into gales of laughter because she said, we promptly got into a fight because I told her, I've waited my whole life to hear it. And her mother goes, I've said it before. It's like typical mother-daughter stuff. It's like whether her mother thought it and thought she said it, whether she said it and the daughter didn't hear it the way, it's like, it doesn't matter. You're energetically lining up with the fuel that you need, and it allows you to safely receive. And it's like, that is, whether it's intuition, whether it's past life channeling, whether it's whatever you're doing, our intuition senses what goes beyond our lived experience. And anytime you're fueling that, It's just giving you a richer life because you're well taken care of and can take the risks that go with the unknown,
Mm.
right?
See, yes, I love it.
Yeah.
You. Thank you.
Mhm.
I Can you tell me a little bit about maybe when we start to change our behaviors, work on ourselves, change our perception of life, how that might influence the lines on our hands?
Oh, I absolutely love this. One of my favorite stories. I think you and I met it, over part of this story, but it's like my nephew came to me and he, wanted me to look at his hands and he had two marriage lines. And he was the child of divorce and he said, I don't want to be married twice. And I said, okay, let's look at how you show up in relationships, And so we looked at his heart line, we looked at his headline, and it's like, again, a little bit of the guarded heart, and also a water heart where it's like he's always knows what everybody else thinks, feels, wants, needs, not so much what he does, kind of thing. So we're
Mm.
looking at that and we're mapping it, and it's like, okay, you make some changes and see what happens. And, he came back to me. He's such a motivated, such a motivated individual. I can tell you story after story. But anyway, comes back like 20 months later, not even 2 years. And he goes, look, look. And it's like the second marriage line had almost completely faded.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, you're not sending blood flow, energy. You're not, the electromagnetic, the blood flow, it's just not going down those same pathways.
Yes.
So this is like a living EEG. And then you map it with your astrology so you get to see where your starting point is. And it's like you see from your starting point, you see what's in your hands now. It's a map. And it's like, well, if you don't like the direction it's headed, well, you can turn right, you can turn left. Or if you really want to go over that cliff, then strap on a parachute,
I
Yeah.
mean, it points to we do have personal choice. I mean, it's like, that's pretty powerful, right? It's not just up to chance. We do have some say in this, and we can make different choices. Yeah.
Yes. And I can't say that enough. And anyone who tries to use either hand analysis or astrology to scare you, walk away. That's their story. It doesn't have to be yours. Because I have tried to find this situation. This is another one I have to go back again. So much information, but there was an astrologer who was frustrated because his colleagues were so fatalistic, with their negative predictions,
Hmm.
and he just was determined to show that it's like perhaps you could be a little more flexible in your mindset, not throw out, that it's like, yes, when Pluto shows up, something's ending and something else is beginning. It is, but you can engage with that process or you can just be, rolled over. But he gave several of his colleagues a chart and he said, this is from a client last year. What would you say? Oh, Neptune in the 6th house and Mars in the 12th. And it's like, they would have trouble with drugs and alcohol and instability and, it probably wouldn't have been a good year financially because their second house was under stress. And, and it's just like, they all gave similar readings
Mm.
and he let them finish. And then he said, this was my client who's an actor, and she did an off-Broadway play she was doing, Janis Joplin. She was playing Janis Joplin. I think it got extended 3 times or something like that. She had the best year of her life, both career-wise and financially, playing the character who had all those issues. She didn't have to express it herself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so we always have a choice of how we engage with the energy. The energy is there. You're in your hands, in the transits, the energy is there, but it's like raw, clay. What will you do with it?
Yeah.
And we're so taught to fear the black and white, the good or bad, the yes or no, the binary, that we forget to pull in the whole picture.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, this is hard. And what do I do with it?
Mhm.
Think of some of the worst things that happened, like the mother who lost her child to a drunk driver and went out and formed MAD,
Yeah.
and how many lives were saved because of it. So it's like it's always a choice of what you decide to do with anything that happens.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. And so much. You've got particular gifts and do you want to do a little primer for people about their magnetic, the heart line? If I get into trying to explain all the lines, we might get lost in the mud. But the heart line, if you drew a plus mark, I love to write on my hand. Here we go.
I love it.
If you drew a plus line right here on your hand like that, it's between the line goes right between where these two fingers meet. And this one is based on the high point of your knuckle on the back. So it's like you trace that around to the middle. So if you draw that, that basically gives you 4 quadrants, right? Our heart line is that top line, and that's your magnetic ability. When you're living in your heart, when you're tapped into your heart, you're pulling in resources. So what we were talking about, when people, look at their gifts or whatever they're doing, how to navigate that and dial it up because our intuition is being so refined right now globally. We are being tuned in. Everybody's intuition is being dialed up. And it's freaking people out, which is why there's some bad behavior, right? But if you understand what you're magnetizing in, you then also understand how to more deliberately shape it, consciously work with it. If it's a shorter, straighter line, it ends under that middle finger. Remember, this is Saturn. Okay, Saturn is our integrity. It's our backbone. You need to be grounded first. Okay.
And this is the heart line we're
This is
looking
the
at.
heart line on either hand. Okay.
Okay.
So it's like if it's a shorter, straighter line, it doesn't have to be flat straight. See, mine is curved up, but it's like it's one of these where it's like you have to be grounded because you're best in the physical. Your boots on the ground, your body, your muscle memory. If you ground yourself there before you expand into the unknown, you've got a certain sense of, okay, I got this. I can do this. My nervous system, because this one, when it's ending here, it doesn't have an edge to refer to. It's kind of hanging out there like an exposed wire, right? And guess what? When people go through shocks and big changes in their life, even people who have these really long heart lines, will have it, the darkest part will shorten back up to the earth. And that's the one line everybody has in common because we all meet in the body, right? I just lost my last remaining parent. I've got a water heart line, but right now the darkest part of it is showing up right here. Very common. Very common when you've got something like that. It's a regrounding, it's a recentering, that it's like, nope, I'm the adult in the room now. And so that can happen, but it doesn't mean that you lose all of the other access. It just means that right now you've got to go back to foundational. Now, if it lifts up past, remember, we're gauging the top point on your knuckle on the back of your hand. If you drew a line through it, it's right there. So it's like, okay. So if it goes past that midline, the horizontal midline, up under that middle finger, we're still under Saturn. This tends to be our logic. Okay, this is our thinking mind. Okay, and it likes strategic, it's like, okay, I always call this, when the heart line is there, it's my air traffic controller. You're in the tower, you've got a 360 view, you're keeping all the planes safe. You still are anchored into, I got to make this safe. The body needs to be safe. The mind needs to know it's got got things handled. All right. So if it's ending up with these. So mind, your gift is strategic. All right. The earth as the drawback, you'll underestimate your impact on others. So it's like you need to be willing to be aware of that. With mind, you need to get out of the tower and occasionally get on a plane. Okay? Because you can get stuck in analysis paralysis or trying to think your way forward. So it's like you're strongest in the body, in action, in earth, and you're strongest in the mind and strategic thinking when your heart line goes up under that middle finger. So it's like, don't be afraid to call on your strengths. Just don't get boxed in by them, right? Okay, now we're making it past that vertical, line, and we're getting over here under the Jupiter finger. So now if it stays lower than that horizontal midpoint, now we're in the water. Water is the most magnetic. The plus about that is you can attract in everything. It's like water is the best conductor. The bad news is you can attract everything. Okay. Water takes the shape of a container. So it's like if you're in one group, you're all amped up. If you're in another group, you're depressed. If you're in another group, you're completely disengaged, and not, it's like just floating. So it's like be aware of your container if you've got a water heart.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And again, left hand is our starting point. It's more of our personal. And then we move it out into the task specific with our right hand. So you want to compare the two, and they aren't always the same. But these 4 quadrants are always the same. Okay. So earth and air are under the Saturn finger. Water and fire are under the Jupiter finger. Okay. So we've got water now. We're last to you two in my little fire girls here, the ones who need praise, applause, recognition, and respect. No, it's not a need. That's just a requirement. That's just a functioning operation. All right. So it's like these are the visionary explorers. And we don't have as many of those because we don't. What would happen if half the world were visionary explorers? It's like that would be a little chaotic, don't you think? So it's like, okay, so again, a smaller percentage, but you're the ones who are going, I've done the work to be centered. I've got this. I'm solid, gone through the body to get up there and, pulling from the heart and the mind. It's like, okay, those are the ones where you can get these intuitive hits and these downloads, and then you want to keep your fuel high so that you've got discernment. Okay. Yeah. But it's like, that's just a little 411 for everybody who's watching this so that you can access your gifts a little more comfortably. You don't need a reading from me. You can do this thanks to you guys putting that out there.
Yeah. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What about a heart line that splits? I don't know if you can see mine.
Yes. It's like having 2 favorite channels on the computer, 2 favorite websites or 2 favorites on the radio. It's like you've got the darkest of the 2 is the primary, but your secondary is a default. You've got a water backup, Susan. So
Oh.
you're fire with a water backup.
Oh.
But they're both outward, they get over to that Jupiter finger. So they're more engaging in the world. The heart lines that end under the middle finger, you have to consolidate yourself first before you meet the world. People who the heart line makes it under the first finger, this is one where you engage in the world and it sparks those intuitive. It's like, because both water and fire are intuitive. Okay. So it's like you have a conversation with somebody and it's just like, "Boo," the light goes on.
Yeah.
Whereas these people, the light can't go on until they know they're safe. You got to make sure you're safe first. And we need both.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you can look at the different, and I see some people with 3 heart lines. It's like, you overachievers, you.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you just wanted to have everything on the platter. It's the sampler platter. It's like you wanted it all.
Wow.
I love that.
Yes, yes. But did we, I'm going to say, did we cover our points of interest? What else did you want to touch on today?
God, I feel like I have so many questions actually.
Light them up. Let's see if we can tackle a couple.
I'm a little blown away,
Yeah.
to be honest.
You're amazing. Our upside potential is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I'm having an experience on the outside of myself, seeing it too. Not just that somebody else is seeing inside of me, but that it's I think gelling.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Where I feel like living inside of myself. I can see it on the outside now.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the big picture frame. And it starts making sense. You have all that lived experience in. So when I give you a picture frame that helps you map the edges, all of a sudden you can see where all the puzzle pieces fit.
Mm.
And seen in the light of your gifts, they don't feel so punishing or so harsh. They feel challenging, but you can go, damn, I picked a brave path, or I picked a stronger path than I realized.
Yeah.
It's got a purpose.
Yeah. I love it. You've been doing this for quite a while, even before you were officially doing this as a career.
Mm-hmm.
Your experience, not just with the hand analysis, but also the tarot and astrology, have you seen a shift in consciousness or even a shift in the types of people who are seeking you out or interested in that inner inquiry and using these things as tools to help actually support them in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely, absolutely have seen the evolution. And I can see now, I get the benefit of the hindsight too, that it's like I could see the opening spiral moving towards this place where it's like people who were never interested in this. There's one colleague in particular I know, and it's like he was always very resistant. And then he had a couple of dreams that he couldn't quite explain. And then he had a couple of conversations that clicked in pieces. And this is where I say that everybody's intuition who wants to engage with it, that collective unconscious is amazing. The internet is just an example, a concrete example to some degree of what the collective unconscious is doing. And
Mhm.
so now we've got a physical expression that
Mm.
makes more sense for people when you say, well, our collective unconscious, this is why feathered helmets happened at the same time as metal helmets in completely opposite sides of the world when there was no mass communication and limited travel.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, we are all connected,
Yeah.
and it's less frightening for people when they see the internet. I won't say it isn't frightening. It's just less frightening because there are some people who are terrified, and rightly so. It's not information that's a problem, it's how we use it. And that's
Mhm.
where we're being moved into that horizontal, where it's like that vertical power over is shifting. We had the feminine, we had thousands of years of the feminine, which is the horizontal,
Mhm.
which helped to gel us. And then we moved into the vertical, which helped advance us, that power over,
Mhm.
which humanity has done an extraordinary job. Now we need the X. It's like, where do we meet in the middle? How do we
Mhm.
wisely use the right power at the right time for everybody's benefit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so true. My goodness.
Hmm. Yeah. And yes, so more and more and more people are experiencing that and curious about that and
Mhm.
looking to find their expression of it.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be cookie cutter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I feel like also and I don't know if this is just me personally, but in my own experience of like heightened pattern recognition, does that play into any of this at all?
Oh, honey, for you as a little fire game changer magician, of course it does. You're going to recognize patterns faster
Mm,
because you're on that tipping edge.
okay.
And so the thing is that's nice now is that others are catching up faster and faster. And you can play with it a little bit more. You guys both, each one of you have the ability to energetically, you know what the figure eight, right?
Mhm.
It's that energetic. It's like you can, and Lynn McTaggart with the power of eight. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Yes,
but it's like,
yes.
yeah, they've done the research. It's measurable, but it's like you can engage if there's something that you're interested in. You can energetically engage in a conversation before you ever have a physical conversation, and then watch what happens.
Mm, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorites, and this is just a quick tidbit because I love to do this to just build our conversation through the collective unconscious with the divine, the unifier, however you want to define it. I had to decide whether or not to buy an airplane ticket to South America, and I was hitting that. It's like I need to buy this ticket in the next 24 hours, and I'm going. okay, am I going to Peru or not? I need to know. And I said to the universe, I said, I love a treasure hunt. You know, I love a treasure hunt, but right now I need to know now. I need it to be unmistakable. I need it to be very clear so I can't miss it. Immediate, clear, unmistakable. And I'd gotten my truck. I had to run a couple errands here in West Hollywood. I've lived here for 14 years. I've never seen it before. I had never seen it before, and I never saw it since. Pulled up behind a shuttle bus in West Hollywood that was decorated with a jungle motif, and on the back window it said, "Come to Peru."
Oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
I thought, well, that's pretty impressive. And I said, that's kind of impressive. And I heard this little voice go, kind of? And I went, okay, I'm dazzled. It's like, yeah.
Wow.
But it's like, those are the kind of fun things you can play with. And
Mhm.
don't we, it's like we have to practice opening up to safely receive it. Because
Yeah.
particularly because we've been on the power dynamic like this for so long, receiving can be, excuse the expression, a little bit of shit rolls downhill, because it's on that pecking order. So it's like we've been conditioned for a long time to be carefully guarded and more resistant.
Yeah.
So as we move into the horizontal, we have to practice a safe receiving so we can offer who and what we are more, engagingly and receive it more safely.
Yeah.
Right? But these are ways to play. And it's like, don't worry if it doesn't happen. If you don't get a come to Peru the first time you do it. I had done it for years at that point.
Yeah.
So it's like, just start playing with it. Have some fun.
It's one of my favorite things. I just want to piggyback on what you said is reminding people to ask. We have all of this support energetically around us and we forget to ask. And
Mm-hmm.
then and then the second part is being open to receive the gift or the answer that comes from the asking, right? And when
Yeah.
we start paying attention and start noticing, it starts happening more. And it's like
Yes.
little breadcrumbs, one after the other that leads us along, the path, I think sometimes to our purpose or, I don't know, or a dream or a goal or something, right? I
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
love it.
Absolutely. And it do let yourself have a process. I'm saying this to everybody who catches this.
Mm,
Because we've been so conditioned that the authority speaks and we have to receive whatever is being offered. And it's just like, that doesn't feel good. So it's like when the universe offers up an answer that doesn't quite fit, engage. It's like, well, I like this. I'm not crazy about this. What else is possible?
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like you don't have to pitch a fit. So often we get into fights because we don't see our own power to say, well, that's not exactly a match. What else is possible? And
Mm,
find your way, feel your way rather than just think if something's offered in black and white, you have to receive it or no. And it's like
hmm.
help evolve out of that vertical power over that has felt so uncomfortable and has so many people guarded on safely receiving.
Yeah.
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 Discernment for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And it's a
Yeah.
learning curve. And you
Mm,
can't get it wrong. I love to tell people that it's like our destiny is printed in our fingerprints. And as many of those life purpose readings as I've done, I've never seen somebody miss theirs yet. They're either playing it out small or playing it out big, but you
right.
can't miss it. You're here to do it and you've got resources to do it. Then
Mhm.
it's just how much fun are you having doing it? Like with you,
Yeah.
the people
Have
on the
fun.
podcast.
Yes, have
Hmm.
fun. Please
Yeah.
have fun.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I love it.
Wow. This has
Yeah.
been so enlightening.
Thank you.
Truly. It's been so enlightening.
Mm.
I'm kind of in awe.
Yeah. Too.
Thank
Me too.
you.
Me too.
Thank
Like
you.
all that in my palm?
Oh, we have barely scratched the
I'm looking at
surface.
this thing.
Mhm.
Barely scratched the yeah, think about it. It's taken you a whole lifetime to create, and this is like an EEG, and it changes. That's what I love. When you think and feel and act on it a different way, you can shape what's cooking here, but you can't miss your upside potential,
Mm.
you know? And it's just like we are so much more than our worst moments. I love
Yeah.
that Ted Lasso quote, I hope either all of us or none of us are judged on our worst moment.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
simple.
yes.
True.
But that's what we tend to focus on, both in ourselves and in other people. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to be on the receiving end of their worst moment again. But it's like that's part of that guard. But it's like as the intuition gets dialed up, we're learning how to navigate, communicate, do rupture, repair, and build resilience. And the answers are always right there in your hand. What do you need to feel emotionally safe so that you can engage as
Mhm.
authentically you in a way that feels good?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
fun.
Is there any
Fun.
wisdom that you can share with
Mhm.
our listeners for anybody that's just beginning to find these tools, just beginning to kind of dip in to personal inquiry, or is curious about how these signs, symbols, patterns
Mhm.
it can serve them as a useful tool?
That is such a great question. I love you remembered to ask that. It's like, or channeled that. But it's like, when you're finding your way, your body has the hardest time lying to you. Our mind lies to us all day long and twice on Sunday. It's going to overestimate the threat and underestimate you to keep you safe.
Mhm.
Okay. So the more and by the way, our fear always goes to work on our greatest strength and not our greatest weakness. So pay attention to what your fear is chatting on about because your strength is right behind it.
Ooh.
Okay. To change and open up into the unknown. Your fear doesn't want you expanding into the unknown. So just inquire there, but then check it in your body. And if
Mhm.
it's a yes or take the next step, you'll feel an openness. You'll feel it in your body. Your shoulders kind of drop away from your ears, they go back, your chest is open, your belly's exposed. It's like, yep. Sometimes your chin will even go up. It's like, yep, yep. Even if it's a hard truth.
Mm.
One woman was here, she walked in, she said, "Tell me anything, just don't tell me I have to move in and take care of my mother who was dying." And
Mhm.
so we did the reading. I didn't tell her that. We got to the end of it and she goes, "I'm gonna move in and take care of my mother." She just felt everything open in her.
Mm,
Well, it
Yeah.
turns out her mother she was afraid she was gonna do it for years. It's like, it turned out her mother had 3 more months,
mm,
and they moved in and they repaired a lot of pain.
Mm.
And so it's like, but her body opened up to it. She kept muscle testing it and she's going, "I keep getting a yes." She goes, "I'm gonna move in."
Yeah.
If it's a no or a not yet, you're gonna feel the tension. Something in the shoulders might go up, the chin might go down, the belly is tight, or the chest, curl over a little bit. It can be subtle. And it's like, just pay attention to whether your body is open and relaxed without you having to prompt it to be open and relaxed, or
Right.
whether it just naturally softens into it. Because, that's why I told the story. The woman didn't want to, but her body kept saying, "Yeah, yeah, you got this." And it's just like, again, that's a really good, just feel your way. Because our body is the slowest to adapt for change. Our
Mm.
spirit, our intuition gets it instantly. Our
Mm.
mind is right behind it. Logic, yes, no, good, bad, edges. Our heart little slower than the first 2. It's like you have to check. I've got like a 48-hour tide on my water heart. So over 48 hours, I notice whether I'm thinking more towards it, pulling more towards it, or whether I'm pulling more back. It's like the more I think about it, the more I want to move in that direction. The more I think about it, the less I want to move in that direction. So that's third, and then fourth, the body. You got to give the body time to integrate,
Mhm.
particularly right now, because the geomagnetic field on the earth is wobbling. We're getting a lot of coronal mass ejections. It's just, we've got solar storms going on. So your body is sensitive. Go slow. Take
Mm.
care of it.
Mm.
Right?
mm.
Beautiful advice. Oh,
Uh,
that's really
yeah.
juicy. Thank you.
Oh, so Lisa, how can our listeners find you?
Mm.
Truthinhand.com. I don't have a lot of information about my palmistry, although that's the backbone. I do an astrological forecast and I incorporate a lot of things from my other tools. There's no cost. You can sign up for my newsletter. You usually get 2 to 3 a week. And if you sign up for the newsletter, there's a nice invitation that makes it an easy to say yes if you want to have a little sample. And I tend to throw a lot into the sample because I want you to have this if people
Mhm.
want it. So truthinhand.com.
Mm.
Yeah.
This has been so enlightening. I have enjoyed this time so much. And thank you for stepping into this space with us. It's been such
Mm,
an honor. Yes,
mm,
this has been good.
mm. Thank you.
Yes. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. I feel like I know myself a little better.
Mhm.
Or I have a little more acceptance of myself just as I am. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Wonderful. Yeah, because you guys are on the bleeding edge. That, 13 to 7%, if you actually combine the two, I think it works out to be more like 4% if you're a game changer magician and if you've got it in both hands. So it's like you definitely want your own support because you've got a, bleeding edge out there with
Yeah.
your intuition. But I have good faith that the two of you will absolutely find your way in
Mhm.
exactly where you're meant to be. And thank you so much for inviting me to come play
Mm,
and share with
yeah.
anybody else who's on their own evolutionary journey.
I
Yeah.
love it so
Thank
much.
you. And thank you for helping us feel a little less alone,
Yeah.
knowing ourselves a little better.
Good.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Mhm. Yeah.
And for our listeners, if you feel nourished or inspired by the Veil Between Lives, please subscribe, like, share, comment, or leave a review. It helps these conversations reach the souls meant to find them.
Mhm. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.